Okay. So again, I'd like to thank everybody here being at Roundtable. We're going to be talking about the annual health medical records and a few other side topics all related to that. And these are important. We really need to have our medical records accurate, up to date, and be aware of the changes that happen with these things. So if you're not already aware, um, the most basic one that you need for everything is one that we call the AB medical form. It applies, and this is straight out of off the national site, applies to all participants in basic scouting activities such as local tours and weekend camping trips less than 72 hours in duration. We're going to look at these. AB is something that is filled out by the parent. That's it. Or an adult, if you're the adult, if you're an adult, you have to have one in as well. There is no only the scouts do it. These have to be completed annually. Some of you may have been around in scouting long enough that remember that it was, I believe, over 40. Then you had to have it done every year. Anyone under 40 was every other year. It's every year for everybody. There's also an ABC medical, and this is the pre-participation physical is needed for resident campers, so going to summer camp, and any event that's 72 hours or more. Now, this one, the reason they call it pre-participation physical is because you need to have your doctor sign it. So for those of you that have kids still currently in the program, think school physical. Um, for those that don't still have kids in the program, think your annual physical with your doctor. There is a section on there that your doctor fills out, completes, and it has to be there to order in order to participate in some of these activities and events. So let's look at the form, and we're just going to change my share here. Now, like I said, I will push the form out in the chat room. So give me just a second here, and we're going to get that right in there. So that way, if you want to open it up and kind of look at it closer as I am talking about it, you'll be able to do that. You can always go anytime to the national website and download the most current version of it. And that's coming up in there now for you. So, the very first page of this, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, this is your consent, informed consent. This is what says that they could be on that activity or an event. It also is a photo release. Right now, this always becomes a tricky topic depending on where you're at about, hey, can we post somebody's photo? Can we take it? Do we have to have permission? That's what this release agreement is it gives us that. So you want to make sure that you have these things, that you retain them on file, even after my suggestion here is even after this medical is expired in a year, if this was used during any events that you might want to consider um, hanging on to this and keeping it secure because of the date of birth information on there. Just in case it ever comes back about, hey, was there even an agreement for them to be there? That's what this is. And the other area that seems to get missed a lot, and this is really dependent on who the medical officer is. So when I say that at your unit, probably not an issue. If you go to a district or council event where you turn these medicals in, you do not hang on to the medical at a council or district event because they have a health officer. It goes to that health officer because they're the ones who are responding to an emergency. They need to have the medical. But in the most technical aspect, participant signature, parent guardian signature, the youth is supposed to sign their own medical form, even though they can't legally do it. It's part of them being aware of what their medical issues are. It's important and I serve as a medical officer. It is important for me that you know that they are allergic to milk, or they're allergic to penicillin, or they're allergic to bee stings. It's important to me that they know that they've got an EpiPen, or that they know the medication they're supposed to be taking, and we'll cover medication a little bit later in this. In the new Cub Scout program, for those of you who joined us last month when we talked about the Cub updates, this actually becomes a requirement that the Cub Scouts need to be aware of their medical and what's in their medical. So, again, how do you as a den leader know that the family's covered it with them? They've signed the participant signature, and I know how a kid signs, right? I've got two of my own. I know the blocky printing, still neater than what I sign as. So, it's important to have that information in there. It's important for the scout to sign so that they know what their stuff is. And of course, parent or guardian. Um, and then of course we go through to the very bottom of this. Again, at a unit, um, you should already know this information. It's not bad to have it on there, especially if you're dealing with split custody. But it's basically saying who can and can't pick them up. Um, that's what those two areas are for. We do look at this for information when you're looking at a summer camp, a resident camp, day camps. Definitely use that when we have them. Um, it's not bad to have that information on there as well. Okay, so this is we're going to look at ABC, and I'm not going to be as fully detailed as all these because a lot of it's fill in the blank, right? So B1 general, again required for every event. Parents fill this section out, or the adult who's making it out for themselves. So the very first top here is all just personal information, but here's the one that causes issue a lot. Unit the Health Accident Insurance Company. So we all know that BSA has a insurance. It is a secondary insurance, is what it is, which means if you have your own insurance, um, then then your insurance takes primary, the BSA comes in as a secondary. Now, if you don't have your own insurance, or the person who got injured, I should say, then the BSA is to do it. Will cover it. Now, think work comp claim, right? It's a process to get it started and get the insurance paperwork going to cover all of this. Um, so you don't want to just start right off there if somebody has personal insurance, because then it creates a big issue on this. So you want them to put the information there. More important is you want a photocopy of the card. And this is what people forget constantly. Please attach a photocopy of both sides of the insurance card, or write none. It's important because we write it down so we know it's there. We attach a copy of the card because if I'm taking your scout or a scout, right? Ambulance shows up, we're taking the hospital, whatever. Hospitals don't take a handwritten insurance number, right? They want a copy of the card. Um, so that's why we have it there. And local event, the parents going to meet you. But if you're on a farther away trip, really important that you have this. And if I'm a health officer at a council or district event and I'm looking for this, again, it's important that I have that information. Then, of course, our who to notify. Whoops, sorry, scrolled that one a little fast. Just our health history, issues in the past, things like that. Nothing different from what we find in every other medical form. This is the second part of the AB, so B2, which is exactly what it's called. So here's another really important area for us is the allergies. Please, yes or no. Don't leave it blank. You want to very quickly see that they don't have one and not have any question about it. Because I have it where people have checked yes and never wrote in explanation. So they'll have checked, yes, I have a food allergy, but not tell me what it is. That's a really important thing for me to know, is that what the food is. Um, and it's interesting the different types that are out there, right? There's obviously we've got the peanuts, we've got the bite stings, we have latex, glutens, we've got alcohol for the hand sanitizers. There's a wide variety of things that we could run into, and this is where we know where it's at. It's also important for me to know, as a health officer and you as leaders, what medication people are taking. It's really important. And for those of us who may have run into this, yeah, he takes or she takes ADHD medication, but we're just not going to have them take that for right now. We're giving them a break. Whoa, that can actually answer a problem. What's going on right here? You want to know what it is, and we will promise talk about medication before we're done tonight and the administration of medication. Um, and then down here, the non-prescription medication administration is authorized with these exceptions. This is not good in New York, right? We do not administer non-prescription medication. That's things like your aspirin, your Tylenol, your ibuprofen, Benadryl. That is stuff that they have to take themselves. The only area that this kind of helps out on is certain summer camp or high adventure camp type situations where they may be authorized to do that kind of stuff. But for you in the unit levels, um, not. They must carry that themselves. They must take it themselves. It's clear in the Guide to Safe Scouting. We do not administer over-the-counter prescription or over-the-counter medications, commonly referred to as OTCs, in any way, shape, or form. If you have them in your unit first aid kit, take them out. Nothing that can be swallowed, injected, cream to be wiped on, anything like that should be in a unit first aid kit. That is a personal first aid kit only. Okay. Uh Again, a little warning about the original it's sufficient quantities and original containers and not expired. Really comes into play when you got to turn over the medications for certain areas. Immunizations, here's a spot to fill all that in. I have always been fine with them attaching a printout of the immunizations from the doctor's office. It's easy enough for everybody to go to their doctor. Can I get a printout of my immunizations and staple it on as opposed to that being there? And we will cover the BSA guidelines as part of my PowerPoints on the BSA stance on immunizations. And then, of course, the other information there. So this is the part C. This is all pretty much all doctor here. This is where the doctor fills in their stuff about medical restrictions. They're writing in about allergies of any kind of sort in there. Um, how the testing went for the different areas of the part. Do they meet different requirements? Which part of them are right down here? And they fill in this spot here. And of course, the most common thing I see is the doctor's stamp as long as there's a signature on it. And that works fine for us. Have to have it there. If you're in an event that requires the ABC medical and there's no C, you can't stay. If you come to a counselor district event and you don't bring the AB medical, you can't stay. Um, I've had people who have forgotten it and had somebody scan and email it to me so we can print it off of the event and have it there. That works. We carry blanks at our events. You should too. But if somebody doesn't have a medical, they're not filled out, don't accept it because you got to have the medicals. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. Again, if you have any questions about the medicals so far, please feel free to put it into the chat room. Okay, so we've looked at the ABC medical form. I pushed it out in the chat room. Easiest way to always find that is just search BSA medical forms. It'll take you right to the site that has those at. And I will push the link into the chat room in just a little bit. All right, prescription medication. This always comes up as a question. It is the responsibility of the individual taking the medication or their parent or guardian. Um, you could agree to accept the responsibility to make sure that they take the necessary medication at the appropriate time, but we don't mandate or encourage you to do so. Uh, Now, that is a very, very generic BSA rule. In New York, you do not hand that hold on to that medication or give it to the kid. By you giving it to the kid, you are administering medication, which requires a very specific certification for that. No, very few people. I don't think, looking at the names of the list, I don't think anybody on this call has that certification. Do not accept the responsibility. If the scout cannot take the medication themselves, parent or guardian needs to come along. I say that I'm relatively sure aware now as of September 1st that in a troop, um, anybody going on the camp out has to be registered. Doesn't matter if it's a parent or guardian, has to be registered. In a pack, going with the pack or the den, parent or guardian are allowed, but they must agree. You have to ascertain that they have read the youth protection guidelines that are the front of every youth handbook. So that's how that parent can go on those camp out type of events. But do not, my own advice, do not accept the responsibility to even hang on to the medication, because then you create a fine line of the scout comes to you, Mr. McGrain, can I get my pills? And what if he can't find Mr. McGrain? Did I just deny him his medication because I was tied up with something at the time? Make everybody responsible for their own medications. Now, there's always an exception to every rule, right? Camp. Because the Department of Health rules and regulations, standards are different at camp. And that's what that next little paragraph says is that, BSA camps have different rules and regulations. And I'm going to say everything I tell you, with the exception of what level of medical form you have to have, things change based on being a summer camp, because summer camp is highly regulated by Department of Health on things like that. So that's kind of the exception to the rule when you go, oh, that's not how they do it in summer camp. You're absolutely right, because we're now mandated by Department of Health on different standards there. So um, we take care of everything, right? We plan in advance. We have all that information that's there, but something happens. What do we do? What we would call an incident. So the very first part of the incident is it's occurred. Take care of the person. Get a safe place. Document and photograph. Complete an incident report and notify your local council. So part of the links I'll send you as soon as I'm done here while I wait for questions to get typed in is there's an incident area. One is for the incident information. It's a form. You should print these out and have them right with your medical form, your medical binder. You should have a binder that has blank medicals, incident reporting forms, first aid logs. And in there, you should have that incident information, which you can kind of detail what happened. There's also one for a near miss incident information reporting tool. So that's when an accident could have happened, but it didn't. And we just want to make sure that we learn lessons from this and we're letting other people know because we all learn better from this. And it's hugely important. And there's going to be more information coming about it, but it's part of what we do here. So I wanted to make sure it was covered in this. So some of the resources that we have here. So I am going to copy and paste as I talk about these. So this very first one here, if it lets me do it, is like that. Okay, let me stop the presentation for a minute, get down to that, and then maybe I can do it. Okay, this very first one here is direct to the medical forms. Oops. Okay, there's a link directly to the medical forms. Please bookmark it, save it, whatever you need to do on this one. So this is, and I'm going to bring this up on the web thing because, it had some really good information on here as well. And I want to show you where some of these answers come from. It's great that GTSS is a Guide to Safe Scouting. You should all have a copy of Guide to Safe Scouting, which is accessible online. And we're going to bring that up because there's a lot of question and answers about the things that I've been telling you here. So this FAQ is frequently asked questions, which covers the immunizations and a lot of other topics, medications, things like that. But we will take a look at those in just a minute. I want to just make sure I get this stuff to you before I move to those areas. And then, of course, this is all the information you ever wanted to know about incident reporting. So they're there. Let me bring up my web browser here. Okay, BSA national page if you've never been to it. So again, the best thing with this is, well, I'll tell you, the most effective thing that I found is to Google search things. However, almost everything we're talking about here is under Scouting Safely. So Guide to Safe Scouting is here. When you go into there, you can download a print-friendly version for PDF if you want. They don't print them anymore. There's also the online version right here. And I'm just sidetracking a little bit to get to that. What's going to happen as maybe I'm going to get to it is we're thinking, come on, is that they do periodic updates on this. And you should always go and take a look. The very first thing that starts off on it, if it loads up on me, is going to be the updates that have made, and they break it down to every time that they do an update on it. You should never ever assume that you're currently up to date on anything in there. When you're playing any kind of event or activity, please refer to the Guide to Safe Scouting, prohibit activities, things like that. Okay, that's causing me an issue. So, medical and health forms. This is the very first link I sent you. So, right there is where you can download the forms, right? The very first one is just the AB form. So, you don't have to have all of it. And then this has your ABCs. And then just some other great information for planning some of the other events that are in here. But from here, you can see that it starts right off with answers to your frequently asked questions. So, do we require all people? Yes. And where can you find it? Um, now, um, what's meant by annual, right? So here's one that I thought was really interesting. And for those of you that know me, I do a lot with health and safety. I've been a health officer for a lot of events. I even do, help maintain the medical records at my unit. Um, so one of the things that always used to be is you could not retain medical records. It was you had it for the event, you turned it back over to the family after the event. So interestingly enough, that was a change in doing my research for this, making sure nothing has ever changed. I don't assume I know it all. Um, I always recheck all my topic areas. National did change this part of the medical forms. You can hang on to these medical forms. You are required to protect the medical forms because it has sensitive information on there. Um, and then only share with people that's appropriate. And then if the medical form is now expired, so it's older than a year, then you either dispose of it or return it to the person. So the whole place where officially we never hung on the medical records, oh, well, a lot of us did it. um, you don't have to worry about that. You do not hang on to medical records electronically, though. So, like where I said, people have emailed them to me because they forgot to bring them and I was the health officer. I deleted that email right away. We cannot maintain an electronic record of medical forms, have to be deleted. Some of you may ask, hey, but when I signed up for camp, whatever, outside the BSA, they had an electronic medical form they filled out. Wouldn't that be easier? Well, there's actually an FAQ here that National is testing that. And we might go to that, but we're not doing that right now. So a lot of good, oh, right there, maintaining records, right? And it has that. Can I keep the records? Um, which was it's not my council officer online, but you can keep the records. Um, so it has a lot of good information on there. There's the immunization guidelines, right? So, which basically is, yeah, we do immunization unless somebody is um and under one of the protected groups that doesn't need to have record of immunization, and then they'll need to provide some type of they may be required to provide paperwork on that. That may be in the updated committee training. Um, It depends on who it is. Now, like I'll say in our unit, so the comment was, they think in committee secretary training that they keep the medical records for the unit. So that's going to be a complete unit decision. If your unit secretary has no reason to know anything about people's medical issues, then they absolutely should not be the one hanging onto those records. Um, it should only be people who have a need to be in possession of those things. So, like in our unit, obviously me because I'm the health officer for all of our events whenever I am at those things, and we produce a very generic allergy report. So we have the allergy report that just says we had these allergies, and I got to tell you personally, I don't even tailor it to each event. I just put it out. These are the allergies we've got to deal with, so that they're always there. But we very much limit who has access to those records. The more people have access, if there's an issue that's tied back to your unit, the more people that are involved with that. But I do want to point out that this committee secretary training, there is a lot of good training and position specific. So um, when we say somebody's on the committee, yes, but they are what we also call the functional roles, like secretary, treasurer, advancement, training, membership. These are all other roles that we just call committee members, right? But when you go into my.scouting.org, go to my training, it will have trainings for those specific jobs that are up there. And even if you have a hard time looking at that part, there's also the district level version, because I'm here to tell you, for the most part, the training person in your unit is doing the same thing that the training people at the district committee are doing. The finance chair in your unit is doing the same thing the finance committee is doing at the district. So they're very good trainings to take. And I would strongly encourage taking all of those trainings. And, if you've got the time, I take them when I walk my dog. Um, do some cross trainings, because you can take all of these on your smartphone. Don't do it while you're driving because it's interactive. But I can certainly stop walking my dog to answer questions and, yeah, as you're going along. But there is some really good training. So thank you for bringing that up. And there's a wide variety of it up there too. The whole section on program safety, which is when you go to my training, the learning center, supplemental training. The next one is program safety. And this is where you find trainings like safe swim defense, which is required to have at least one adult leader trained in it every 2 years if you're doing a swimming activity. Safe swim, I'm sorry, safe swim defense. Safety afloat. If you're doing a boating activity, at least one adult has to be trained in this. It's good for 2 years. Climb on safely. If you're doing a climbing or rappelling or bouldering, a high ropes course, you got to have one person trained in this. It's good for 2 years. Um, Hazardous weather outside, need to have at least one person trained in this. They did make this part of the new position specific training that's online. Again, it's good for 2 years. And they have a great supplementary one, which is called Drive Safely, which is, if any of us remember, and some of you may still take this, is the driver safety course, the 5 hour course where you can get the insurance discount. BSA has a version of it too that can be done online. It's not good for your 5% or whatever the percentage on the insurance is now, but they have that, which is a really good training about incorporating some of the BSA rules and suggestions in there as well. So there we have a lot of the questions that come in here about that, which also includes the medication on there as well. And you'll see that we have over here is the general health and safety FAQs. Maybe I got to tell you, I don't know why this is all taking so long to load, but it is. It's getting there as it's going to load. So we talked about some of those FAQs already. That's just general health and safety information in there. You can see that there is a got questions, which is actually sending questions to the National Risk Management and Medical. And incident reporting is one below that. And that has all the information about incident reporting with direct links for that as well. So that is everything I have for our medical forms. Again, very important. The common areas I see is out of date, not signed, no medical insurance information, missing key details, and then people always seem surprised when I'm the health officer or district council event. They're surprised I'm taking them or reviewing them. I'm absolutely reviewing them so I know what's going on. I'm absolutely hanging on to them. If you want to make sure you have a copy in your unit as well, um, make a copy. I don't care. Me personally, I don't care if I have the original or not. I just want a current one, but have a copy in there in case you need to turn one over. In my unit, I tell everybody, give me a copy for the one in the unit. Don't give me your original. Um, Things happen. When we go to an out of council event or to summer camp or whatever, I turn in copies of those because if I don't get it back, I've got a problem. I'm not turning over the only copy I have for my unit. I turn over copies. So I would encourage you to encourage your people to do the same thing, as to have a copy or put two like in a sleeve. Oh, the one thing I did forget to mention is when the incident happens, when I said, in case I used the term you didn't know, the first aid log. So you should have a notebook, or there's an actual first aid log. You can buy it or you can download and print it off. But there's an actual first aid log where you would record, like, Mark on this date, this time, Mark McGrain, tripped, fell, twisted his ankle, Brad Boda, applied an ace bandage wrap to it, and that seemed to be the end. And that seemed to be the end of care. And there you go. You want to record all care and treatment for any first aid thing that goes on in your unit. Sometimes that one incident, and that's the end of it. Other times involves insurance, and we need to be able to go in and check those records and have the records of what happened, care that was given, by who gave that care, and any follow-up work afterwards. And you have to have that information. And you also need it for your incident report as well. So you should have that, and it can just be a notebook. It does not have to be the BSA official form. You just want to make sure you're getting the prime details on that. So with that, thank you.